The tale of Kaldor Draigo truly began during the demon incursion of the world of Acralim. Makar the Reborn had led forth a demonic army from the realm of chaos, and would be satisfied with nothing less than the ruin of not only Acralim, but the entire Vida sector. It was inevitable that the Grey Knights would stand against such a threat, together with 9 regiments of Imperial Guard and Space Marines from the Astral Knights and Flesh Tearers chapters. The third brotherhood of the Grey Knights, in whose ranks Draigo fought, descended upon the world. What awaited was one of the most terrible battles of that century. There can be little doubt that if the Grey Knights had not been there, Acralim would have fallen. The tide was only turned by their daring strike against Makar's warp fortress. It was here that Kaldor Draigo, a freshly ennobled battle brother, made a name for himself. It was Draigo who dealt the death blow to Makar, and so cast the demonic horde back into the warp, but the demon clung to life long enough to place a vengeful curse upon his slayer. Victory on Acralim saw Draigo acclaimed with the rank of Justero, the first of many such promotions. For 2 centuries Draigo served his chapter and emperor with unfailing distinction. He earned honours and glory unsurpassed by any Grey Knight before him, save perhaps Janus himself, foremost of the founders whose deeds had shaped the Imperium in its darkest times. He became Supreme Grand Master in late M41, following the slaughter of the previous chapter lord at the hands of the demon Primarch Mortarion, and in the same battle he carved his forebear's name upon Mortarion's rotting heart, an insult that the demon has never forgotten. The defeat of the demon Primarch was quickly tempered by the dark visions of the prognosticars. Draigo's ascension to Supreme Grand Master had disturbed the path of fate, though none could foresee the consequences. 2 centuries after Draigo's victory on Acralim, an astropathic distress beacon brought news to Titan that Acralim had been invaded by demons once again. Upon learning of this, Draigo knew without doubt that Makar had been reborn, and this was the demon prince's attempt to bring true his curse. Having so determined, Draigo gave word forbidding his chapter to involve themselves with Acralim, lest others fall prey to the doom that was his burden to bear, a duty his battle brothers bore unwillingly, though, to his knowledge, none disobeyed. Yet the world was not to be abandoned to its fate. Draigo took ship to Acralim, there to meet his unfolding destiny alone. So it was that Kaldor Draigo, Lord of the Grey Knights, came once again to Acralim. He spoke few words, yet his grim purpose was plain to behold, as he trod old battlefields reawakened to fresh slaughter. At the siege of Castle Gorseth, it was Draigo who unleashed the Psy-Flame that swept the demons away, and he who struck down the plague-rotten abomination that commanded the assault. In the Trebarin Valley, it was Draigo who held rearguard in the narrowest part of the pass, holding the baying hordes of madness at bay, whilst the Cadian 912th fell back. Survivors of the retreat recount that Draigo held that rock-strewn corridor for 2 days, never once missing a blow, nor taking a backward step. It would have been hard to judge which side held Lord Kaldor Draigo in the greatest dread, the demons, for the crippling losses he had dealt upon their kind, or the soldiers and officers of the Imperial Guard, who saw only a silent brute whose armour was slick with the blood of slain hellspawn. However, Draigo was not yet spent. Roaring his own battle-cry, he rose up and thrust his sword's severed shard into Makar's black heart. With that one blow, Draigo delivered Acralim for the 2nd time. As death throes racked Makar's body, so too did they begin to tear at the warp portal he had summoned. The rift's baleful energies began to disperse, and one by one the demons of his army faded into nothingness. Yet, before the portal closed completely, Makar had one final act of vengeance. With his last strength, the demon prince cast his talons around Draigo's throat and heaved the Grey Knight into the collapsing rift. So did Kaldor Draigo pass out of the mortal world and into legend. The tale of Kaldor Draigo did not end that day, as many supposed, for he survived his passage into the realm of chaos. Lesser men victory is yours this day, mortal, but know that if ever you set foot upon this world again, you and all who follow you shall walk with damnation for 10 millennia. Makar the Reborn tonight. Draigo 26 would have been driven insane by their arrival in the domain of the Chaos Gods, where damnation lurks upon every path. Yet Draigo's mind had long been hardened to the madness and seductions of chaos, and he somehow endured in this land where no other man could. The tale of Kaldor Draigo did not end that day, as many supposed, for he survived his passage into the realm of chaos. Lesser men would have been driven insane by their arrival in the domain of the Chaos Gods, where damnation lurks upon every path. Yet Draigo's mind had long been hardened to the madness and seductions of chaos, and he somehow endured in this land where no other man could. For an uncounted age, Draigo wandered that terrible, ever-shifting landscape. His path was strewn by demons who sought to slay him or seduce him to darkness, yet through bitter struggle Draigo overcame each of them. Atop the Blood Falls, where the acrid ichor of Khorne's fallen champions tumbles endlessly into the void, Draigo slew the great bloodthirster Karvoth. With cleansing fire he drove demonic taint from the beast's great axe, and used the molten remains to reforge his sword, sundered in battle with Makar the Reborn so long ago. He unleashed sanctified flame again amongst the writhing jungles of Nurgle's domain, and for a long time the gusting warp winds that buffeted him carried a charcoal stench and the tortured screaming of demonic vegetation. On a journey through the whispering meadows, 6 sisters, the chosen handmaidens of Slaanesh, sought to tempt Draigo with promises of glory, power, and all the myriad riches desired by mortal flesh and spirit. But their words could find no lasting purchase upon his soul, and he scattered the demonette's dismembered remains amongst the alabaster grasses. At the gates of the inevitable city, the Lord of Change Makachan offered Draigo a path homewards. But in reply the Grey Knight smote the city walls and left the bird demon entombed amongst the ruins. However, the mortal world was not yet done with Lord Draigo. When the prophet of Justero forged an alliance with the demon Nakari, he drew a portion of the realm of chaos into the mortal world, and Draigo was drawn through along with it. So was Draigo briefly reunited with his chapter, for a brotherhood had arrived on Justero to combat Nakari's threat. Draigo was clearly long adrift in time, for he did not recognize these warriors, yet these embraced him as their brother, and fighting side by side, they cast down the mad prophet of Justero and banished his demonic allies. Alas, Draigo's victory was a hollow one, for when the gateway closed, the Grey Knight found himself drawn through the rift and trapped again within the warp. He had helped bring about the deliverance of Justero, but could not save himself. Such has been Draigo's fate ever since, to walk the realm of chaos for unknowable periods of time, on occasion taking his eternal battle into the mortal world for brief spans before being freshly jailed upon victory. Since the great rift tore the Imperium asunder, Kaldor Draigo has found his way back into real space more and more frequently. Some of the Grand Masters believe that, as the Cicatrix Maledictum shredded the veil between reality and the warp, so did it weaken the bonds that tether Draigo to the Chaos realm. Others believe that the forces of chaos that occluded the Supreme Grand Master's vision are now dispersed across dimensions, and thus Kaldor Draigo can perceive the needs of those he leads across the vastness of the galaxy. Regardless of reason, one thing is certain. Draigo has appeared to aid his Grey Knights multiple times since the opening of the rift. He has even been witnessed fighting in different war zones on opposite sides of the galaxy. Perhaps the opening of the rift will allow his return, or perhaps it will seal his fate forever. The prognosticators are divided on this matter. Draigo himself does not spend his time musing over such issues. He uses what little time he has hunting down the foul spawn that the rift has regurgitated. Chief amongst his quarries is his enemy of old, the demon Primarch Mortarion, the murderer of his predecessor. Victory is yours this day, mortal, but know that if you set foot upon this world again, you and all who follow you shall walk with damnation for 10 millennia. Makar, the Reborn to Knight Kaldor Draigo.